Welcome to another Luminar NEO tutorial. Today we'll be exploring how to create and edit HDR Panorama using the Panorama Stitching extension in Luminar NEO. To begin, we'll need a series of bracketed photos with at least 20% overlap for seamless stitching. In case you need a refresher on how to capture bracketed photos for HDR images or panorama photos, we have tutorials available on our channel covering these topics. If you wish to begin editing alongside me, you can access the sample files we'll be using in this video by heading to the description and downloading them from there. So now we have everything ready and we can start. So as you can see, we are already in Luminar NEO, catalog module, and as always, we are starting by looking at the sample files. Now we have 5 sets of 3 bracketed photos and they are ready for us to use them for this edit. The capture is a lovely village in the south of France, captured during blue hour, and the bracketing will help us to make sure that we have details in highlights and shadows. All we need to do here is to just select all the images, and we can do that by using shortcut on the keyboard, Command or Control A. Once all the images are selected, we can now drag and drop them on the Panorama Stitching extension. Once we do that, you will see the preview in this little preview area, and now we can use the little arrows to go through them to double check that they are all there. Before we start the stitching, we want to make sure that we adjust the settings. So for this, click on this little circle with the 3 dots, and that will bring the settings up. Here, make sure that you click on the distortion correction, the vignette, and also the chromatic aberration reduction. We have an option here also to click on ghost reduction. However, as there is no movement on these images, we're gonna leave it unchecked. So once we're happy, we just click away and then click on Start. The first window on the Panorama Stitching extension is the preview of the HDR images. So here you can scroll through the images, make sure that they all there, and once we're happy, all we need to do is to click on Continue. Now the extension will process the images, create the HDR photos, and then stitch them together. After that, we will be able to see the panorama preview. Now on this next window, we will be able to transform the image. Start by zooming in, and you can do that by clicking on the image or using a wheel on your mouse. So we zoom in a little bit, and now we can focus on the projections in the bottom left corner of the window. Here we have an option between the spherical, cylindrical, Mercator, plane, and fish eye. Now you can play around with that, see what works the best for you. However, I think for this specific image, the Mercator work quite well. So I'm quite happy with it. After this, we can move on the image. We can zoom in even further and drag it around to make sure that everything is as straight as possible. To do this, keep an eye on the crossed overlay and see to make sure that everything looks good. I think something like this looks quite well. If you want to zoom out, you can also hover outside of the image and rotate it around. However, we can do more of the rotation later on in the editing module. So I think once we're happy with the aligning, maybe just drag it up a little bit more. All we need to do is to click on Stitch. So once everything is ready, you have selected your projection, you have pushed the image around, rotated. All there is left to do is to click on Stitch. In this next step, we will be able to crop the image. Now you can use the maximize crop area, which is something like auto cropping. Basically what it does, it selected the most of the areas as long as there is an image in it. However, for us, let's make it even a little bit tighter, somewhere around here. We maybe don't need most of this, and we also adjust it from side. I quite like to see these houses here, so let's just do something like this, and maybe a little bit more sky as well. Don't worry about a little bit of extra space here, we will fix that a little bit later. Once we're happy with the cropping, all there is left to do is to click on crop button in the bottom right corner. Once we do that, we will have a chance to double check the image again, and if we're happy with it, all we need to do is to click on Save. After this, the extension will stitch the image and prepare the new file. The new file will appear in a folder called Panorama Stitching. This will appear in your folder section of the left toolbar in the catalog module. Once it's ready, we just select it and then we move it into the edit module. Here in the edit module, we're gonna start by taking care of the technical stuff. First come first, we wanna remove some of the sensor dust, and after that we also wanna fill in this empty space. When it comes to removing the sensor dust, the easiest way is to jump into the Essential Tools, Erase Tool, and then click on Remove Dust Spots. Now the application will scan the image and remove all the dust spots for us. It only takes few seconds and the spots are gone. After this, we can close the Erase tool and focus on this area here. To fix this, we're gonna use cloning. So let's go all the way to the bottom of our main toolbar, open the clone tool, and let's start by selecting part of the sky. Now with that done, we can come back to the actual tool and adjust the size of the brush. When you're happy, just start to paint the part of the sky into the missing area. So we can do that. After that, we can zoom in a little closer, and we can do that by using the Command or Control plus on our keyboard. When you have your brush selected, use a spacebar to move to the area. And once we get there, we're gonna start from the bottom. This is a little bit a tricky part with the mountain here. So what we wanna do, we wanna use Alt O option on our keyboard, sample part of the mountain, and once we have it, all we need to do is to align it with the rest of the hill or mountain and just paint it in. Once that's done, we can just continue making sure that we cover all the parts. And then at the same time, we can move up and continue adding the sky. If we are a little bit too close, we can again sample a little bit further away, again by holding Alt or Option key, so somewhere around here, and continue with brushing. Okay, this is looking good. We covered everything. So after this, let's just zoom out a little bit using Command or Control minus, and maybe even a little bit more. And now again, sample area next to the missing part and simply continue brushing until you fill in all the empty space. When you're done with all of that, all we need to do is to close the tool and apply it to the image. So now we have taken care of the technical part of the image. So let's just zoom out, and we can do that with Command or Control 0. And let's go back to the top of the main toolbar, where we're gonna start in a Develop tool with the basic development. Now jumping straight into the Optics tab, we're gonna start by selecting the Auto Def Range and then close the Optics. Also for now, we're gonna close the light. And the next thing we're gonna take care of is the sharpness and noise reduction. So let's open both of the tabs and let's zoom in to 100%. You can do that by using Command or Control plus 1, or you can use the shortcut at the bottom of your screen. After this, navigate to specific area, double check, but looking at it, there is not much noise there. So let's just go into the noise reduction and make sure that on luminosity slider, you have 10. After this, we're gonna move into the sharpness. Now for landscape images like this, I like to use the rule of 100. So we take the number 100 and we minus the amount we add on luminosity. So 100 minus 10 is 90. So we're gonna take the sharpen slider and add 90. This usually works nicely together. It just makes sure that you're not sharpening and then removing the sharpness with the luminosity slider. So 90 is good, and all there is left to do is to adjust masking. Masking will make sure that we only sharpening the areas with the edges and details. So to do this, let's just increase the masking. I usually like to use somewhere between 60 or 70. Once we're done with the noise reduction and sharpness, we can close the tabs, we can zoom out, and we're gonna continue in the light and black and white. First come first, let's take care of the highlights. So we're gonna bring them down quite a lot. I'm thinking almost to -100 or maybe around -90. After that, move on the shadows. We're gonna open them a little bit up, but nothing crazy. I think maybe just around 10. And after that, we're gonna adjust the blacks and whites. To do this, keep an eye on your histogram. Now, if you don't see the histogram on the top of your main toolbar, just right-click anywhere on your image and select Show Histogram. Now, when you click on the histogram, you can turn between different modes: red, green, blue, and what we're looking for is the average, which is right here. Now, looking at it, we're looking good on this side. However, we can add a little bit of whites, so somewhere around here. Of course, that you still keep an eye on the image, just adjusting it in a way you like. So I think with the whites, somewhere around 10 will do. And then with the blacks, let's bring it down a little bit. Again, maybe just somewhere around -15. Once we're happy with this, we can close it and come back into the light. Here we can definitely add some contrast with the smart contrast slider. So let's push it a fair bit, I think maybe around 12. And with the exposure, let's have a look at it. I think maybe the image is a little bit too bright. So let's bring the exposure down a little bit, maybe just somewhere around -0.4. I think that's looking good. Once we're happy with the light, we can close it and move on to the color. So let's open the color, and this is where we can adjust the white balance by shifting the temperature slider. We can go on the right to add some warmth or on the left to add some cool. And then with the tint slider, we can add some magenta or make it more green. In fact, when I'm looking at it, I think the image is a little bit too green for me. So we're gonna definitely add some magenta to it. And with the temperature, well, we can make it a little warmer, which I'm not so sure about, maybe a little cooler. When we actually add a little bit of coolness to the image, then the warm areas of the town, you know, the lights and street lights actually stand out a little bit more. So I think maybe, let's say -1, maybe -1, maybe a little bit more tint. I think the tint works very well with the blue hour, and that's about it. After that, we only have the saturation and vibrance left. Now looking at it, there is a lot of green there. So let's bring the saturation down a little bit, just maybe somewhere around -10, and push the other colors with the vibrant slider. So we're gonna just go up a little bit. Let's have a look. Maybe like 15. 15 is looking quite good. Now looking at it, I think maybe we have removed a little bit too much saturation. So let's bring it up maybe to -7. Now we are finished with the color, so we can close that too. And in fact, we are finished with the basic development using the develop tool. So let's close this and we can continue. In fact, we can use any of the tools here, depending on what you prefer. When I'm editing image like this, I like to go into the structure AI and look into the amount slider. We can make it all a little bit more glowy and fantasy-like by bringing the slider down, or we can add a little bit extra clarity to the image, depending on what you like. For me, I think maybe a little bit of extra clarity with the amount to +10. Once we're happy with it, we close the tool and move on to the details. With the details, we can really push the details to make the image stand out. Usually what I do here, I go into the small details and bring them somewhere around +12. And then the medium details, I bring them around 10. Once I'm done with that, I quickly jump into the details masking. And just like with the sharpening earlier, we want to go into the details masking and bring them somewhere between 60 or 70. So now we have added details, we have added clarity, and all there is left to do in this part of the main toolbar is to jump into the landscape and maybe add a little bit of the golden hour feel with the golden hour slider. So let's just push it a little bit. I think somewhere around 26 is looking good. Maybe it's a little bit too much. So around 20. And once we're done, again, close the tool and apply it. Now, don't forget that anytime you need to adjust any of these edits, you can go into the Edits tab and you can see all the edits and tools we have used are here. So you can come back to them and adjust them if you need to. Now, coming back to the tools, we can continue for a little bit more. Let's go into the creative part where we can, for example, go into the mystical tool. And that's a tool that adds a little bit of glow and warmth and the whole fantasy feel to the image. Now this is a great image for it, so let's take the amount slider and bring it up. Keep an eye on the image, you can see that it also creates quite nice contrast. It makes some of the darker parts even darker and everything just looks really nice. So once we're happy with the mystical tool, I think that's about it in the creative section. And finally, we're gonna move all the way down to the professional section where I would like to use the super contrast tool. So let's click on it to open it too. And let's just add a little bit of contrast in the midtones. So again, keep an eye on the image and maybe a little bit more contrast in the highlights. So by doing that, you can see how it kind of affects the sky. It's looking quite good, something like this. And we are almost finished. After this, we can close the super contrast tool. Let's go back to the top of our main toolbar, where all there is left is just a few final touches. First, we're gonna add a nice vignette in the vignette tool, and all we need to do here is just to use the amount slider and bring it down. So I think somewhere around here. If we want to add extra touch, we can go into the advanced setting and use the inner light, just to add a little bit of more brightness in the center of the image and guide the viewer's eyes. Once we're happy with it, we just close the vignette tool, and to really finish it off, I would like to apply a little LUT to the image just to add a little bit of color grading. So for this, we're gonna go into the creative section, into the mood tool, then we can click on a choose LUT drop-down box. And here, let's go into some of the LUTs that come with the application. So we're gonna go in the cinematic toning. And when you hover over the LUTs, you can immediately see the effect they will add to the image. I think the Anaheim maybe is a little bit too green, Bakersfield too blue, Long Beach is looking great, I really like that. Los Angeles maybe a little bit too bright, Palm Springs no, Riverside, Santa Barbara. I think the Long Beach is the way to go. So click on it. If you want, you can still play around with the amount slider, maybe to add even more. And that's about it. So let's close the mood tool. And now finally it's time to look at the before and after. You can also use the new slider, which is really cool. You can kind of push it around and see the before and after. And you can see that the difference is huge. To switch it off, click on it again and enjoy the result. Now, before I let you go, I want to quickly tell you that this tutorial was powered by our Luminar NEO Essential Preset Bundle. But the main reason why I want to tell you about it is that it includes 4 HDR photography preset collections. Let's have a look there. It includes Essential HDR presets, Landscape HDR presets, Nightscapes HDR presets, and also HDR presets for portrait photography. So if you're a photographer that enjoys more shooting than editing, or if you're looking for some inspiration on how to edit your HDR photos or HDR panorama photos, then this bundle will be perfect for you. To find out more about it, head to our website cleverphotographer.com, and to get the best possible price, make sure that you use the link in the description of this video.
And there you have it. If you want a copy of our popular Luminar NEO shortcut cheat sheet, there is nothing easier than heading to our website cleverphotographer.com/LuminarGive. While you're there, you can also check out one of our popular Luminar NEO products, or you can stay here and watch more videos about Luminar NEO. For today, I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please make sure that you like, comment, and share on this video. And also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel so we can keep creating content like this. For today, thank you very much for watching. My name was Jakub, and I can't wait to see you in the next video.